What's up, guys? What is happening? Welcome back to another episode of Burdensome Blessings. My name is Chelsea L, and I am your host, okay? I have an amazing intro that I have written up and have not yet memorized. It's so good. And I would like to get to the point where I can deliver it flawlessly to lead into these episodes. But right now, what we're doing is just kind of intuitive, raw, and uncut recordings, okay? So, as many of you know, I'm going to stop playing with my hair. Like, Jesus Christ. I do it all the time at videos. It drives me insane. Anyways, as many of you know, I am sober. I am in recovery, okay? And so I have, within the last year, started going into the rooms of AA. This has been transformative for me in a multitude of different ways. There has been some radical awakenings that I will touch base on tonight and talk about. But I have a really hard time because when I go into these rooms of AA and we have shares, um, I always want to share. I have so much shit to say all the time, which is why I started a podcast, is because I got shit to say and I need to get it out of my mind, my brain, my body, like my soul and my spirit. Like, I have things to say. And whether or not it's important, you guys decide whether or not it resonates for you, which, like, I hope to God that it does. You decide, but I have to get it out of my brain, my body, my life, and it ends up on a platform, okay? So I have a hard time sharing in these meetings, like face to face with people. And I've like processed through it, and I'm like, why do I have such a hard time with this? Like, what is it about this that messes me up? Like, is it the fact that it is face to face with people? And I honestly, I got to the point where I really think that it's the time frame of sharing. Like, you get like 2 to 3 minutes, and then you get a minute if you go over. Like, the things that I have to say on the topics that are brought up, like, I have way too much depth for 3 minutes. You guys, like, I can't do it. Can't do it. My thoughts are scattered. I want to touch 100 different freaking places and areas. I don't think I could connect all the dots, a little ADHD going on, you know? And so instead of sharing in the rooms, I get on here and I record a podcast. Sometimes I record my like TikTok talks in the car. Just like spirit led, intuitively get these downloads, and I'm like, yo, you need to post about this. You need to talk about this. And so we try to, but I post it to the internet instead, which is a lot more intimidating, posting it to YouTube or like on Spotify, than it is, you would think, to share in a room of 30 people that you actually know, right? And people that think that they know you. Which, like, really, you guys don't know shit. If you think you know, you don't know. But here's the thing. The more that you listen, the more that you will know. And so part of the topic tonight was talking about your higher power. And this is something, you guys, for me, that has always like, and I don't think it's just for me. I think like the greater collective struggles with this thing, the thought of a God, and like the word God in itself is like a trigger for people, you know? And so one of the things that I was going to share about, and one of the things that I was going to talk about is, so I was sober for 7 years, and I was not working a program. I was not in recovery. When I say like there's a difference between being sober and working your recovery, I'm actually living that out now. And I can speak and have a testament to that because of the difference in my life between being sober and then working recovery. Completely different. Okay. There's a term called dry drunk. Look it up. Anyways, for the 7 years that I was sober, which, like, still an accomplishment. You don't get to count that time necessarily. It led to a relapse that I had that basically I crashed out and destroyed my entire life. Pieces that I'm still cleaning up to this day, okay? In that, part of the reason why the relapse happened is because I didn't have community. I didn't have a program. I had no structure. And I was a miserable sack of shit, you guys. Like, I was not a happy person. I was healing in the best ways that I knew how. But honestly, all I had done was gotten sober, and the rest of the things that were wrong in my life, like that's a brain problem, that's a mind problem. And I was still kind of living in that. And part of the reason and part of how I got sober, which you guys, if you went back, if you look on my social media, I was interviewed on a podcast recently. It's called 3 a.m. Pillow Talks with Kevin and his fiance, Tiffany. I will be featuring Tiffany on a podcast of mine soon. We're going to be talking about domestic violence. And CPTSD, like it's gonna be amazing from a female perspective, obviously. And so in that podcast, I mention and talk about the fact that going to church helped me stay sober and ended up saving my life. Okay. So this God concept was something that was so new to me. It was not something that I had really grown up with, and it became everything. Like when I started going to church, like I don't do anything half-heartedly. Like I'm jumping in head first, full commitment, like you get all of it. I did not listen to secular music. I didn't watch secular movies. Like God was everything, totally sold out, became like Jesus junkie, was like obsessed and crazy. Okay. And this is going to all come full circle. So just follow me through it. And this is also why I can't share in AA meetings, because I go so in depth about details, because I have to give everybody the full picture. And maybe I'll work on that. Maybe that's a trauma thing. Who knows? But here's the thing. The only reason that I stayed sober or was able to get sober was because there was something greater than myself. That was not by my doing. That was something far greater than myself. I had no will to live at that point. When I stepped foot into church, and it was like, there was a couple different places that it had come from that got me introduced into the church that I had started going to. Like I was reflecting back today, like thinking about the relapse and how it happened. And a lot of it was because I got so far away from my higher power, and how that had taken place when I stepped foot so I'll be getting 5 years sober in February, no fronts. Okay. But that will be the first chip that I pick up, because I'm new to AA and I'm new to working recovery and doing the 12-step program. But when I had stepped into the rooms, I had gotten a sponsor, and started working the steps. And this was like a year ago. Okay. So I've been like also crashing out for a year. So just follow me through this. I got to the third step. And the third step, we're going to read it because I don't have any of this shit memorized. Remember, I'm new here. Okay. And if you're new here too, like, just know it's okay to be messy. It's okay to show up messy. All of this is really messy. Recovery is messy. Life is messy. Anybody that pretends like they have their shit together is a fucking liar. Excuse my potty mouth. But it's true. Okay. So when I got to the third step, I got my shit rocked. Absolutely fucking rocked. Okay. I loved going into these rooms. I love the wisdom that is in those rooms. Like I still to this day am like blown away that I get to be around these individuals in recovery, not just sobriety. Okay. Two different things. But anyways, step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And the as we understood him part, I really fucking missed for a really long time. Like I was on step 3 and I was losing my mind because I had all of this like religious trauma from my past when I had first stepped into the church, like sold out for Jesus. God became everything to me. My family, all my friends, super confused by this concept, not understanding that it literally saved my fucking life, right? Well, I had met my ex-husband and got married in the church. And that whole situation, a blessing. We're going to start ripping that wound open and talking about it. Before I really get into it, I really need you guys to know when I am referencing these human beings, especially because some of you listening to this, like, you know them, and you guys are going to know some of the individuals that I talk about. I'll try to refrain from using names, but like the kids' dad, like everybody knows who that is, right? We have a decent relationship, a co-parenting relationship. When I talk about these things and these experiences, I'm just using them as a point of reference of my experience. Like, that is a good human. He has good character, all of those things laid out. Okay. I just want to preface with that. So, met and got married in the church. And how we met was through this group called Young Adults. And this was at a church that's a mega church. And looking back on it, I literally am so deeply disturbed because that place was basically like a slaughterhouse for females. And especially me being new coming into the church, I didn't have a lot of understanding. And that's not to say that I didn't have autonomy in making my own decisions, right? But there is a level of like persuasion and emotional manipulation that kind of happens. And there's another woman that I'm going to feature on this podcast. And so the people that I had met in the community that I had met in that church and in that young adult group, there's some people that I'm still connected to now. And when we connect and we get together, I have them as clients or we touch base as moms and friends. Our experiences are pretty similar, and the destruction that we experienced is pretty similar. And I'm not saying it's the institution's fault by any means, but in my experience, it felt like a slaughterhouse for these poor women. Okay. I still have a hard time to this day going into a religious institution. I like to the point where I bought a fake ring that I will wear if I go to a Sunday service so that I am not feeling like I'm being fucking headhunted. And maybe that's an egotistical thing of me to say, but like when I walk into church, like I'm there for a point and a purpose, and it's not to find a husband. Like did that one time, not trying to do that again. Absolutely not. And so like I wear a fake ring that I bought when I go in there. So it's just like they see that, it's off the table. I can be left the fuck alone. Anyways, so met and got married in the church. Okay. What transpired in those next, we'll say, I'm really bad with timelines. I'm really bad with dates, anniversaries. Never could remember them. Okay. Birthdays, awful. Trying to keep up with 4 kids' birthdays, awful. But anyways, we'll give it a 4-year timeline. Okay. What took place in that 4 years was insane. And this is leading up to me talking about the third step in God as you understand him. Okay. Because I had to literally, when God was brought back into my life, when I started doing step work, I had to revisit these places. And I was losing my ever-loving fucking mind because those were gaping wounds that I had left untouched, walked away from, pretended like they weren't there at all. And all of a sudden, here it was right in my face. I was having to address these things. I was having to think about these things that I hadn't thought about, the resentments that I had, which came next in step 4. And I quit at step 4. Got rid of my sponsor, was like, no, the fuck I'm not. Almost checked myself into a mental institution because I was literally losing my fucking mind, right? And so go all the way back to new marriage. Me and the kids' dad met and got married within a year of knowing each other, okay? We had a 3-month engagement, so I planned a wedding in 3 months with little to no money. When I had met this man, he was homeless. He was jobless. He had a car, but it wasn't necessarily his, okay? And so many people would ask, why did you think that this was a wise idea to marry this man, right? And I'm in this place where I had just gotten out of a relationship, like freshly gotten out of a relationship, and was very freshly into sobriety. And so when they say like, do not date within the first year of sobriety, really listen to them. There is a reason why you are uncovering so much. You are learning so much about yourself. Like, there's a reason. There's a reason. Anyways. So, met, got married very quickly. Had 2 different, proposals. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. After we had gotten married, the reason why I married him was because our relationship my relationship with God, his relationship with God, okay? I literally felt like I was being told that that was my husband. That was the first man that was really ever nice to me and not trying to like sleep with me, right? So inlays a whole lot of unpacking and like shame culture in church and like whatever. But we waited until after marriage. We did not have our first kiss until we were at the altar. All right. Did not live together before marriage, which in some instances, sure, maybe that works. It's not something that I would ever suggest, and it's probably not something that I will encourage or perpetuate for my children. We will have other talks about other things and the important principles behind it, but you really can't know a person until you live with them. Now, inlays, here's the next problem in this is when we did move in together, we moved into a home with one of his friends and his wife. And in moving into this home, those three had shared a relationship previously, and I was like this new pillar to that, okay? And not to mention, they had all grown up in the church or they had had all experiences with religion and their relationship with God. This was something that was so new to me. I was so new to church. I was so new to the concept of like God and Jesus and all these things, right? And so moving into that home, some things happened that I literally still to this day do not think that I will ever be able to process properly. There was a lot of talk about spiritual giftings and some things happened, some deliverances had happened in front of me. I had witnessed some things that literally, you guys, like the reverence that I have when I talk about like spirituality or demons or darkness, like you can know that it's real because you experienced it. There's a difference between like theology and the ideologies of like Satan and demonic stuff and all of these kind of things. And we can like we could totally deep dive into that stuff because there's a difference between having that personal experience where you can literally see, feel, hear, like with entities, or there's the theologies behind it. Okay, so there's theologies literally that I've talked about with some of my girlfriends where she, this was a couple years later out of the church where she was like, I don't even believe that the devil exists. And I was like, wait a second, that's an option? Like, that's a fucking option? Or that heaven and hell are not existent and there's something called Sheol, Sheoul, which is called soul sleep. And so opens up our mind to all these different concepts, okay? And I tried to now hold it with neutrality and I try to be like pretty flexible and hear people out. Like you question everything that comes from the pulpit. You want to gather all the information so you can make these informed decisions, right? And honestly, like as I've been studying neurobiology, there's something called neuroplasticity, and this is a part of it. Is your brain should have this level of expansion of knowledge and understanding, and its growth. Okay, we'll leave that at that. Anyways, there was things happening in this home that rocked my fucking world, especially as a new believer. And I remember one thing happening one night, and I ran to the bathroom, got my Bible, locked myself in the fucking bathroom because everything that was happening in that room made zero fucking sense to me. And I wanted nothing to do with it. Nothing to fucking do with it. I locked myself in the bathroom and I don't even know how long I was in there, hours, studying and researching and trying to figure out about demonic possession and what deliverances were and the mind and body and soul spirit connection and how that works. And if your soul belongs to God or you have handed or asked Jesus into your heart, then like you can't necessarily be possessed, but you can need a deliverance, okay? And we get into some hairy shit here. I'm not here to debate this shit. That I'm just telling my experience and why I have a hard fucking time and why I can't talk in a meeting in 3 minutes about all of this shit and what God is to me, right? Anyways, fast forward through that. At one point during this walk, and I like one of the things, and I always wanted to be a wife and I always wanted to be a mom. Okay, that was always part of my plan. It was raised into me through society that was my job. And so I wanted a husband and I wanted to have children. I got pregnant probably 6 months after I was married. We were living in this house. And shortly after that, that house situation really fell the fuck apart. There was situations that had happened when I had come home from work and they would all be doing their spiritual Bible study, talking stuff together. And there was this one night I remember coming home and I walked up the stairs and the energy shifted. Okay. Energy shifted. And later on it was mentioned to me, like, it's just like when you come home, the Holy Spirit leaves, right? Like, that's not good for somebody's fucking confidence. Okay. I was like, well, we'll take that. I don't know what we're gonna do with it. Still to this day, I'm like, fuck you. How dare you? How dare you? For years I've been saying that. How dare you? Because the spirit definitely lives within here. You guys, this is the center. There's love. Okay. Beyond that, that situation fell apart. Me and the kids' dad at that time, we had moved into our own apartment and then got introduced into a synagogue. Okay. So this went from traditional Christian roles, responsibilities into some weird charismatic shit, fire tunnels and fucking being slain in the spirit and talking in tongues. Like, we went from 0 to 100 real fucking quick, okay? And I was like, okay, I'm open, whatever. And then ended up in a synagogue, okay? That synagogue experience was very cultish and something that I was literally, I was baking challah bread, was not celebrating regular holidays, which, like, that for me was hard because I love Christmas. I love holidays just in general. Like, I am sold out for this shit as much as I hate the consumerism of it. You guys will hear me talk a lot about that. But, like, I fucking love holidays. I love the spirit. I love the essence. Anyways, it was a no-go for like 3 years of my life. And this was like the first 3 years of my kids' lives as well, that there was no Christmas. It just didn't happen. And it was because we were on this radical path of like following Yahweh. And so there was things that had happened that honestly, when I look back, I don't know that I would have been in agreement to had I been functioning in my own governance and agency. But I was so under the impression of this level of submission to my husband and to God. And my husband was following God. And so this is what I was supposed to be doing because this was his path and where he was being taken. And so, like, I had autonomy, but I really had no agency and didn't understand until I was just like, like, this doesn't sit well with me. And through the synagogue, that eventually ended up into the kids' dad and my ex-husband's relationship with God completely dissolving. He walked away. He started questioning all these different theologies, ideologies. Mind you, he had grown up in the church, okay, his whole life. And I was new to the church. So this relationship was built on this foundation of God, dissolved, and then him and I were left with little to nothing in common. Okay. I was really mad at God. I was really angry at God. I didn't understand, like, because my goal was you get married once, you stay married for life. That is what I wanted. And I did not want to raise my kids in a broken home. And then here I was married to a human being that I felt like I did not know at all, had had children with. Okay. And then fast forward through this time as this like relationship that he had was dissolving through his curiosity and like he wanted to have a deeper and greater understanding. And he would go to this group called Brew Theology, right? And they would go and drink beer and they would talk about different theologies and religions and whatever. And it led him to finding his way out of religion, which is like a beautiful freedom, okay? Especially because he felt confined by it his whole entire life. But then there we were, like, what are we doing? What's happening here? And amidst this time, so I had my son, he was like 6 months old at the time, and enters in ex-husband's family. his side of the family on his mom's side that he was estranged from for like 13 years to my knowledge, okay? The stories that I had been told, not great stories. Also not my stories to tell necessarily, but when they enter the picture and this becomes my experience, now I get to talk about it. So, sorry I'm not sorry if you guys are listening. Welcome to the shit show. I had a 6-month-old baby and was a new wife and was navigating sobriety and not knowing which way was up or which way was down or what was going on. And his little sister came to live with us. And that's a whole nother story. We're not going to get into a lot of details about that. God bless her heart, sweet, sweet soul. But we had went to premarital counseling. I had went to individual therapy for many of years. And then we had also went to a specialty therapy to learn how to reintegrate his mom's side of the family into our lives because they wanted to be involved with our child. Now, this sets up a whole shit show for my relapse, okay, which is why I'm giving you guys this information. Everybody has some bullshit. I don't tell you guys any of these measurements as a means of like, oh, pity or whatever it is. It's not to elicit a reaction. It's just to give information so you guys understand where I'm coming from. These are credentials, okay? And there's a whole lot more that goes into it than just like the surface that I'm sharing, skipping over timelines here, right? So these people come into our lives. They want to be involved as grandparents. Historically, don't have a great track record from what I've heard, but this is my first experience with these humans. Stepdad is known to be a prophet. Mom is known to be a very religious, spiritually enlightened individual. There is a level of substance abuse within that relationship dynamic, okay? And now, mind you, before I had gotten married, I was very clear, hey, I am sober. I have no reservations. This cannot ever be a part of my life. I have no intent or plans to drink ever again. And different people have different definitions of sobriety. So when me and my husband at the time had met, he was like, hey, I'm sober too. And I was like, no fucking way. Well, come to find out, his definition of sobriety was not drinking liquor, still drank beer, and was ripping blunts. Okay. Like literally just smoking blunts and being like, yeah, God told you that, or God told me that you were my wife. And I was like, what? No way. Wait, let's pray about it. Like dumb. There's not a lot of clarity happening there. Looking back on it, I can talk about it. I can laugh about it. I know it sounds kind of harsh, but this is the reality of what was happening at the time. And a lot of people don't understand because we haven't talked about his and I's relationship dissolving and what happened and how it happened. All the people that were at our wedding or in our wedding, a lot of them don't even know, Here's the thing. We are going to therapy to learn to reintegrate his mom's side of the family. And I'm a very protective human being. I take my job role and responsibility of being a mother very seriously. And I've mentioned in previous podcasts that I don't have a healthy relationship with hypervigilance. Okay. So I was very protective over my kids because of the stories that I had been told previously. And I also have this thing when it comes to substance abuse. It doesn't matter if it's booze. It doesn't matter if it's weed. It doesn't matter what it is. I am immediately triggered. Immediately triggered. If I smell it on somebody, if, they're high around me. And it's not for strangers. That's their business, they're not in my inner circle. They have no influence on me, no influence on my children, but it's people that are interacting with me or my kids in a close proximity. I have literally a physiological repulsion to it. And so that was one of my main things, was being like, hey, you absolutely can be involved in their life. Here are the boundaries. Here are the limits. This is what it is. Nobody listened to those fucking boundaries, okay? This is kind of a side quest from where I was heading with all of this. But God was weaved in to all of it because everybody was proclaiming Christians and prophets. And I'm like, what the fuck again is going on? This is some whack ass shit. And how are we going to say that we're following God, the same God, and not operating in love? Doesn't fucking make sense to me. And this is where a lot of stuff comes in, where I say that I learned what love was not inside of the church. And there's a difference between showing up and loving people the way that you think they need to be loved and loving them the way that they actually need to be loved. Okay. So, full circle from the side quest of the grandparents coming in, that relationship that did not go well. That did not end well. It didn't matter the 10 weeks of therapy that was done to learn how to reintegrate these humans in a healthy manner was like lost, like total waste of time. That whole situation still has never been touched, still has never been addressed. At this point, I don't care to address it. My kids will always come first, and I will always and forever protect them. And if the boundaries that I set as their mother, as decision maker for them, are not respected, you have no place in my life, you have no place in their life. End of story. It's non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. So that in life, we're gonna wrap that up. We're not gonna go down that rabbit hole too far. Anyways, there was deliverances that happened, there was prophets that were involved, there was all of this hubbub surrounding God, to the point where I literally like cleaned my hands and was like, I can't fucking do this. I don't feel safe. I don't feel protected. And at that point, I had our second child, my daughter, and she was like 6 or 7 months old when I relapsed. And when I made the decision to start drinking, it was on the little sister's, my ex husband's little sister. It was her 21st birthday. And we were at his family's house, and they did question me. They were like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yes. I'm a grown adult. I had been thinking about it quite a while. There were seeds that were planted along the way that, like, hey, maybe you can handle drinking. Like, you're healed now. Or maybe 10 years from now on a beach or on a cruise vacation, you could have one glass. But this stuff was like encouraged from a lack of knowing and understanding. They only knew Church Chelsea, which was very different. If you guys know, you know, than Party Girl Chelsea that was wild and out and had to get sober by the ripe age of 21. Like, what? What? Um, and so my sobriety was not protected. And a big part of that is on me. The decisions are on me 100%. But the people that I was surrounded by, they did not know how to support me properly. So I was at peak postpartum. So I had had my son. I was predisposed to postpartum just because of my substance abuse and mental stuff that I had gone through as I was growing up. So I was predisposed to postpartum depression. I went into postpartum depression with my son, got pregnant almost immediately. So postpartum depression can last for up to 2 years after you have a baby. And it takes almost 7 years for your cellular structure to go back to normal after having a child. 7 years, you guys, that's insane. But 2 years postpartum can last, okay? And then I got pregnant right as I quit breastfeeding him. My first cycle, I got pregnant with my daughter. And so I went right into prepartum depression, and then had her and went back into postpartum depression. And I was like, she was like 6 or 7 months. And that's when I started drinking because I could no longer handle or manage what was going on around me. It was absolute fucking bananas. I couldn't make sense of it. And I was like, everybody else gets to fuck off and do whatever the fuck they want. Like, it doesn't matter how much I advocate for my home, the safety, the structure. Like, this is a fucking runaway train. I might as well join the party. I'd convinced myself I could handle management, that I would just like mommy wine culture a little bit here and there. And it went from having a drink once here and there to me drinking pints and bottles within, I want to say, like a month and a half to 3 months time. I was back to being a complete fucking disaster. And I dismantled my life. So I think I went back out for, I want to say, 3 years, dismantled the shit out of my life, you guys, to the point where I'm still putting pieces of it back together now. Okay. So all of that and a whole lot of parts that I skipped over, a whole lot of like deep truths and hurts and shit. I don't want to air out everybody's laundry like the way that I want to, but the way that I'm not going to. And it's not out of respect. Like, it's not out of respect, but out of my dignity, I'm not going to. It's not out of respect for them because I really don't have a lot of respect for them. God bless. Anyways, so I stepping into these rooms had no idea what I was doing, but what got me sober the second time around was me getting pregnant with my now 4-year-old. And so February 15th is my sobriety date. And I literally thank God for my kids because I don't know that I could do this or would be able to do this for myself. I recognize now, and I know that like that's a heavy burden to put on your children, and I hope that they never really have to hear that, but they will know like they were a big part of my reason for staying and fighting and continuing to pull up the bootstraps and show up like every fucking day is for them. And getting pregnant with my 4-year-old saved my life. Getting pregnant with my 2-year-old saved all of our lives. Okay, that's a whole nother situation that gets us into like the domestic violence talks and all of that. We're going to skip over some of that for right now. And we're just going to go into when I stepped back into the rooms, because when the third step came up and it was like, God, I was like, oh, no. No, 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 no. The way that I can't with this. Like, I walked away from God. I stopped praying a long time ago. But like I had always had this pull towards something spiritual and a higher power and more. Like there's this one story. I lived in this apartment with my old roommate, which I hope to have her on the podcast someday so she can actually like be a testament and tell you what a shit show I actually was. Have no idea how that woman lived with me for as long as she did. Also, God bless her heart. But I was shit-faced drunk. Absolutely annihilated. Okay. At that point, you're like talking in cursive and there's no spaces in between the words. And I remember sitting there and just being like, I don't know. It's just like, I'm a child of God or something. And this was the same night that I drank so much. Every single time I drank, I would black out. Okay. I would get sick. And then I would binge drink for days to the point where I couldn't even go to work. Like I tried to function, but I had a really hard time stopping drinking once I started. And you would do the hair of the dog thing and just keep going, right? Um, this is absolutely heinous, puked in the sliding glass door track. Okay. It was not outside of the tracks. It was not like out on the patio. It was not on the carpet. It was literally just in the track. Don't know how I did it. Don't think I ever cleaned it up. So to that apartment and the people that had to clean that apartment when we left, like, oh my goodness. There was some things that happened in that place, which like I will tell stories over time. Chicken wings fell on the carpet and one of my drunk friends was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean it up with bleach. Didn't go over well, right? Almost had a girl overdose in my back seat when we were coming home from a rave to that apartment. Like that apartment held some whatever. But I remember back to sitting there annihilated and just being like, I don't know, it's just like I'm a child of God or something. So there was always this calling, right? The thing is, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where it was coming from. I've had to go back and revisit all these things and look over my life. And I'm like, yeah, there's a higher power at work because I wouldn't be standing here today. There is literally no way, shape, or form that it would ever make sense for me to be alive and walking in the blessings and the clarity that I have now without higher powers at work. The situations that I was in, awful. Absolutely awful. Okay. When I had to visit the third step, I really tried to buck up. I had some conversations with some individuals that were in my life at that time and like explained to them why this stuff was so hard for me on a ideology and theology level, because I had known too much. I'd known too much about the Bible and like, oh, like it's a lot, you guys, but I was missing out that chunk, as you understand. And so when I was going to speak in tonight's meeting, because they were talking about God as you understand him and all of that, like I I love shopping. I shop like it's my day job at the thrift store, okay? Like professional thrifter. I fucking love it. So when I was early in my sobriety and recovery, I went to this thrift store and there was this portrait of Jesus. And something about it. Like I had to climb to the tallest top shelf to get this portrait down. Okay. And I was like, I'm buying this. Had no idea what that portrait would mean to me to this day. So buy this portrait of Jesus from the thrift store. Okay. Pretty sure that it was sketched in prison. Done ballpoint pen. It's fucking beautiful. I'll show you guys a picture of it. Um, that is God as I understand him today. And I call it thrift store, prison, trailer park Jesus. And that's what I can vibe with. That's what I can fucking get down with. Okay. And like the way that you so have to get out of your own head and really harness the part of as you understand him, because we're not really going to be able to make sense of a lot of it in these like, we're living in the 3D, and then there's these 5D like different dimension. You get into quantum physics and quantum timelines, all this other spiritual, like beautiful shit, right? Hold it with neutrality. I always try to keep an open mind about it. One of my favorite quotes, so you guys all hear me talk about this, is certainty causes suffering, right? So I'm never trying to be in a place where I'm like, yeah, I fucking know everything about all of this. Like I have some knowledge that I can spew here and there, which helps like set up the foundation for some of my thoughts or beliefs or values or principles that I live my life by. But I always want to be open to hearing more. I always want to be open and be malleable to digest more and be like, oh my gosh, like I hadn't heard about that deity. Let me learn about this. Even to the point where at one point, like I studied Satanism just to understand, just to know. I was not subscribed to this. I was not sold out to this, but I'm like, I want to have an understanding of this and how that varies from Christianity and what is this in Buddhism and all of these things, right? All over the place. We're going to go back to thrift store, prison, trailer park, Jesus. That portrait or that drawing, I have moved with me to every single home that I have lived in, which is a lot, because probably for 10 to 12 years, I have moved once a year, if not multiple times a year, 2 to 3 times a year, some years. Okay. Insane. That has gone with me everywhere, and it has been next to my bed in every house. And the way that I had no idea what that would look like and what that would mean to me to this day. And this is where blasphemy comes in a little bit. Like there's certain people, if you're listening to this, like I know the way that you love God and Jesus and westernized religion. You say like it's not religion, it's a relationship, but it still very much is a structural thing. Anyways, I don't do well with surrender. Okay. Submission is something that is very fucking difficult for me. I have literally, like, I love obedience. And that was one thing when I got into church and Christianity that I was like, you know what? If I'm going to show up and do this, I'm giving this 100. Like, you tell me to do something in obedience, you better believe I'm seeing that shit through. And so that feeds into part of my disappointment, like in getting married and saving myself for marriage and being like born again and waiting until you get married to live together, like all these things. How disappointed I was that I was like, I did all of the things. I did all of the fucking things. Like, why is this not blessed? Why is this not working? Why is this such an uphill fucking battle? Like, I don't understand, because obedience is something like I want to follow the rule. Like if you lay something out and you say X, Y, and Z, and this is going to get you this end result, I'm like, cool, I can vibe with that, But there's this like submission aspect that I have a really hard time with, and a lot of that stems from misplaced authority in my life. And part of that is probably because I was raised in a very like authoritative driven home where there wasn't a lot of autonomy and choices. Like I wasn't taught how to make healthy choices for myself. I was just told this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it, which is probably why that paradox, of me being like, I fucking don't do submission very well, but I love obedience. Like it's a weird give and take, right? So my submission in visiting the third step the first time, I was not ready to crack that bitch open. Okay. And then I got thrown right into my four step, and being thrown into my four step the way that a lot of that, like, I comprehended what was happening and I knew what was happening, but here I am revisiting all these resentments and finding my part and my piece in it. And there was no reconciliation in a lot of other ways. So I felt like there was this aspect that was like missing to it, right? But I was also during that time going through an immense amount of trauma and having trauma responses to everything. I was in trauma therapy. And so this is kind of a heed warning, you guys. Like when you're working the 12 steps, um, it probably is wise to also be consulting with a mental health professional in some regard. Um, just from my own experience, like to have another person to talk to, like your sponsor sometimes is not an individual that is trauma informed. You need another outlet. If you have a significant amount of trauma, like your sponsor is just that. They are there to walk you through the 12 steps, but the other stuff that lies beneath the surface that can be cracked open in doing this work, you need to have a safe haven and a safe landing to go with that stuff. Like to this day, now that I'm starting over, like I'm on step one right now. Um, but to this day, like my trauma therapist and we we talk about this stuff. It's really fucking important. And yes, your sponsor is supposed to be a safe place where you can like chum it up, talk all this shit, like hash it out, but you cannot put that person on a pedestal, like in some way they are a mentor to you and you are in submission to them to a certain degree. There's an agreement there when you ask them to be your sponsor and they take you on as a sponsee. Okay. Like that's not lost on me. But sometimes if there is a significant amount of trauma, there is more work that you need to do behind the scenes than just the 12 steps. And you need to be very careful. And also to sponsors, I would like to say, like, take this into consideration when you are working with individuals that may have had mental health issues or have significant trauma, which, like, we all do. My trauma is not more important than anybody else's trauma, and nobody else's trauma, like, trumps other people's trauma. We all fucking have it in some regard, and that's the real gateway, right? But there just needs to be another level of, like, aftercare in that, in looking out for these human beings. And it is their individual responsibility in their agency and in their governance of themselves to exercise that how they may. But there's a level of like reverence that should be had for it and how seriously you take this shit, because it can unlock some crazy, crazy stuff. But all of this to set the scene, to share information that stepping back into doing my step work, I'm on step one, gonna be working my way back to step three. When I walked away during my fourth step, and for the last year, I've been doing sobriety, I've been going to meetings, but I haven't been working my recovery. The way that when I visit step three again, that is going to be so different and so transformational from where it was even at a year ago is mind blowing. Absolutely fucking mind blowing. Okay. But I really just want to touch base on the whole like trailer park, thrift store, prison, Jesus. Like, this is the higher power conceptually. Okay. That sits with the prostitutes and the lepers. Okay. That accepts you in all of your fucking mess. This is not like, okay, I was given an analogy long ago. Say you have like this nasty trap house, nasty hoarder home, nasty room that has been unkept and not cleaned for, we'll say, 35 years. Okay. Your higher power does not come in the door and be like, hey, before I come in here, spick and span, I want this shit all cleaned up. But we have this like preconceived notion that there has to be a level of like purity and holiness and cleanliness before we're inviting that higher power in. But really, they want to come in, it wants to come in, however you want to address it. You know, your HP is your HP. You define that how you want to. As you can tell, mine's very non-traditional. Trailer park, prison, fucking thrift store, Jesus. Um, it doesn't need to be neat and tidy. It doesn't need to be cleaned up. Like, this shit is messy and it is wild. It is not meant to be pretty and prim and proper. But the more that I've gotten into the readings and the other stuff that I've been studying and looking into, like, my sponsor is an absolute fucking godsend, genius human being. And this literature, divinely inspired. Like, I read this and I cannot get enough of it, you guys. I want to go back and read and read and read. And it's actually kind of funny because when I read books, like, I have a highlighter in my hand and I'm like highlighting every fucking thing. I'm like, oh my God, this is word. Like, this is so good. Like, this word right here, I don't know what this means. I'm going to highlight it and add this to my vernacular and I'm going to look this up and I want to know this, right? Like, I'm just thirsty for it. She a thirsty girl. Look, I don't have it all figured out, clearly. Um, I don't know that I ever will have it all figured out. My experience has been just as fucked up as a lot of other people's experience. The number one thing is I have relentlessly pursued a version of healthy that I don't quite understand, but I pine for. You know, like, I made that my goal and my mission in life, that I just wanted to be healthy physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like all the illies, right? Like, I just want to be healthy. And that's what I'm striving for. And that looks different on a day to day basis of what my needs are in what area. But the one thing that I know for sure, and I feel crazy saying this shit, but there is greater powers at work, you guys. And as much as I've ran from it, I've been one to literally like dismantle it and say, like, no fucking way, I'm an atheist. Um, whole lot of whole lot of mess there, right? But there are experiences that you have in your life that don't make sense outside or otherwise. So I probably did a chop fucking job at delivering a lot of this. We're at like 52 minutes. This is why I cannot do a 3-minute share, you guys, because I'm like, I have to go back, I have to touch every part of this. And literally, when I get into God and my church experience and all of that, like, my children's names, the older two, are um biblically inspired or inspired by spirituality. Everything in my life was that. And to walk away from that and clean my hands of that, relapse to a point of destruction, complete and utter destruction, and have to build from rock bottom. And people say, like, rock bottom is the strongest foundation to build from. And I'm like, bitches, rock bottom has a basement, and I found it. Okay. So when we talk about rock bottom and building from this, there is a level of like resiliency that I think some people don't. You think that you're the only one, you know? Nobody understands what I'm going through. Nobody feels what I feel. Nobody knows the pain that I know. Nobody knows my trauma. And we all do. It just looks very differently. How it's presented is very different. So, like, when I get on and I'm doing these podcasts and I'm talking about this stuff, like, a lot of it is because there's this calling and passion on my life for healthy and healing, and I want to share the things that I've known and that I've experienced so that hopefully there is a level of resonance with another human being out there. Because if, say, 500 people view this and only one of you is inspired, like, fuck yeah, it did the thing that I needed to do, you know? um there's not a lot of shit that I know. Ruth from Ozark, it's one of my favorite quotes ever, but she says, I don't know shit about fuck. And I love living in that place of humility while also being in a place where I'm like, yeah, but the things that I do know, like the difference between head knowledge and heart knowledge, that lived heart knowledge, you guys, like, that is not for naught. We are meant to encounter other people. We are meant to share in community, and our lived experience is our living testimony to share with other individuals and other human beings in hopes that they can find their recovery or they can find their passion, their reason, their calling in this life. Like the human beings that I have encountered in those rooms, and I never would have met them had I not stepped foot and started working my recovery. Stepping foot into the rooms of AA, like what? And now these human beings, like my girlfriends, are everything. Everything. I could call them drop of a fucking hat. One of them did recently. Called her. I was hysterical, fucking losing my shit. And she's like, "Do you want to come over?" And I was like, "Yes, I just need a hug." And she literally brought me into her home, sat down on her couch, sat all the way back on her couch, and just put out her arms and her legs and was like, "Come here, let me hold you while you cry." And I'm a fucking 35-year-old grown-ass woman and needed to crawl into another mama's lap. Like, that level of healing, that level of being seen and heard and felt, you guys, like, that's fucking real. That's fucking raw. And that's just touching the surface. God, I'm not trying to cry on here, but it's fucking real. I haven't cried for a very long time in my life. In fact, when I was using and in active addiction, I used to say, like, I don't have tear ducts. And what would end up happening is I would suppress everything and I would hold it all in, and then I would get blackout drunk and go ballistic. Absolutely fucking ballistic and lose my shit. So, anybody that's having a hard time with their emotions and their feelings, like, there's something transitional that happens in this work, in the 12 steps, having a relationship with a HP, like all of these things that, like, this brings you to a point. I don't know. It's a lot. I'm going to call it for the night because I've jibber jabbered for like 56 fucking minutes now. God bless your guys' heart if you listen to this whole thing. If you guys have more questions about my story, because I like bounce around so much, if you want to know more about specific things that I've talked about, there will be more of my story that I tell. And let's just hope you're not on the wrong side of it. Love you guys.